Could somebody please make it make sense?
Hey everybody, welcome to A Pop of Culture. I'm your host, the Esoteric and Facetious, and this is A Pop of Culture, which is my video essay podcast where I speak on pop culture, social justice, and the human experience from a Black, bisexual, millennial perspective. Everything, and I mean everything I say, should be taken with a grain of salt, as I'm simply a recent college grad with access to a recording device and the internet. With that being said, my youth shouldn't be your sole reason to critique my views unless it's truly relevant. If you disagree with anything I say, let's have a civil conversation in the comment section below. Before we get into the topic of this video, which is a story time and commentary, I want to advertise my cover channel, A Pop of Culture Sings, where I sing throwback R&B, contemporary R&B, pop music, whatever I'm feeling, whatever you're feeling. So if you want to be down like Brandy, if you're down with the click R.I.P. Aaliyah, then definitely feel free to check that channel out. So let's get into the topic of this video. This is going to be my second story time in my college story time series. So if you haven't seen the first story time, which is How Adapt Triggered Me, definitely feel free to check that video out, as watching that video then watching this video will give you some additional context. But if you haven't seen that video, you can still watch this video. I'll give you a quick rundown of everything that happens, so you don't have to watch the video to watch this video. This college story time is about how someone tried to use truth or dare to get me to come out to them, and why that was very problematic. So as I said in my previous video, I went to a predominantly white institution. I went to a college that wasn't far from me. It's a pretty good college, so everyone who got in had to have good grades and good SAT scores. I'm somebody who was gifted in AP classes, who was involved and who did well in school, so I got into the school. And other people I knew got into the school as well. As someone who was gifted in AP classes, who was performing well, I knew a lot of the people who got in, especially the other Black people who got in. So going into this predominantly white institution, this new environment of college, I definitely kept in contact with other people who got into the school, especially other Black people who got into the school. And not only did I keep in contact with those people and interact with them once I got onto campus, since we knew each other, we were from the same area, I also interacted with other Black people because there was a Black group chat that was active, a Black group me, a group chat for first years. So I interacted with those people, trying to get to know people before I got onto campus and as I got onto campus. This story time is about an experience I had with some Black people I knew from high school who I was interacting with early on into my freshman year in college, as we were all getting to know people, so we were interacting with each other. So if you haven't seen my first story time, I mentioned two people, Sue and Shelly, that I knew from high school. Shelly is somebody I knew through my sister. My sister did color guard, and Sue was a member of marching band, and also Sue was a mutual friend of some of my friends. I also knew Sue because we were in AP World together. Sue had actually tried it and said a little shady remark in AP World. If you want to see the shady remark, watch my first video. And if you want to see the inciting incident of the initial story time by Sue, watch that video. But me and Sue were cool because we basically knew each other, we were familiar with each other, and we were in a new environment together, so we were hanging out. And now let's get to Shelly. So I was also cool with Shelly. I knew Shelly for a few different reasons. Me and Shelly were in a few classes together freshman year. We were both really smart, really high-performing Black students, so we were in different classes together throughout the years. I remember us being in language arts together freshman year, and we were also in anatomy senior year. In anatomy was one of those really intense classes. We did not have AP anatomy at our school, but we had a very passionate anatomy teacher. So it was almost like an AP class. We were in the gifted honors class, and it was intense. Like, we had to know all the bones in the body. We had to know everything. It was a very intense class. And I remember being in that class with Shelly, so it was like we saw each other putting in that work. We both knew we were not playing. We were some academic go-getters. So I was cool with Shelly too, because Shelly was somebody who could kiki, have a good time, but when it came to put in that work in the class to get the good grade, Shelly was about that life. So I was cool with Shelly, and I feel like we had a mutual respect for each other. We were cool with each other because it was like we were both hardworking students who also could get down and have a good time. So we kind of had that respect for each other. So going into this predominantly white institution, this unfamiliar environment for all of us where we're just all excited to be grown and go to school, we were all friendly with each other. We all kind of wanted to lean on each other and go into this new environment together. Since we all were excited, but we all didn't know what was next. We all didn't exactly know what was going to happen. So we were excited to have each other because of course we knew we were going to make friends and make connections and join clubs and etc. But it was nice to have those people that you knew from school, that you were familiar with, where you had those little memories and good times from before college, where you knew I'm not going into this all alone. So that's kind of some background on Sue and Shelly. Sue and Shelly and me hung out together a lot. We were kind of this threesome where we would go to different parties, we'd go to different events together, we'd go to the dining hall together, we'd hang out in Sue and Shelly's dorm. So we were cool, we were this little threesome. Now there's two other people to add into the story time who are also relevant. There's Natasha and there's Betty. So let's start with Natasha. Natasha, she's a Black British girl. She's very religious. Me and Natasha were kind of cool. I had this friend group of friends and acquaintances that I interacted with a lot. We had our little Snapchat group. We communicated with each other. Before I left for school, we went to Waffle House to hang out with each other, and we were pretty close. Looking back, there was some shadiness and some toxicity there, and I may get into that in some other story times, but we were cool for the most part. And Natasha was a part of that group. Me and Natasha, we were cool with each other. There was definitely some friction there because Natasha was very uber religious, and Natasha was very much the type of uber religious person where she kind of pushes her religion on people. And here's my thing, I have no issue with religious people. I am an atheist, but I have no issue with religious people. But my thing with Natasha was she was definitely the type of person who would judge you if you didn't have that same religion as her. And that will probably be a future story time because there was a situation with that. She was and is a very religious, uber religious type. She would try to convert her friends. Whenever her friends were having situations where they were going through traumatic things, she would try to swoop in and try to push them towards religion and push them towards God. Well, I think it's great that religion has been this source of strength for her. I don't think it's okay to take advantage of other people's vulnerable moments as a way to evangelize to them. I would always see this happening when people were having a hard time. One of their family members died, they had a S attempt where they tried to harm themselves, and she would swoop in knowing that they were in a lot of pain, knowing that they were hurting, and try to push religion on them, to try to push her belief system on them. And I just never felt okay with that because it's like, this isn't the time to push your beliefs on them. This person's vulnerable. Talk to them. Learn about what they're going through. Be a friend to them. Don't try to use this as a way to evangelize to them. And the funny thing is, these traits, these characteristics will actually come to play in later story times. Even if they don't come up in this initial story time, looking back as an older, more mature person, I noticed how some of these traits and things that you notice in people, you may think, oh, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, or that's kind of a little bit of a red flag. I would kind of brush them off and say, oh, well, you know, it's okay. And I would try to say, oh, well, you know, I'll just see what happens. And I just thought, I don't like how she pushes her religion on people, but I'm going to overlook it, and it's okay. I tried to excuse it. And then, of course, it reared its ugly face at me and led to me having traumatic experiences. So it's just funny to me how, as I'm talking about Natasha and bringing up these issues that I saw with the Natasha earlier on, it's funny how they're going to come to play in later story times, and that I noticed them earlier on, but I didn't do anything about it because I thought, oh, it's okay, oh, it's whatever. But it wasn't whatever. Some of these behaviors were unhealthy, and I wasn't wrong for seeing and observing them. And looking back, maybe if I took these red flags more seriously, I could have saved myself some traumatic experiences. It wasn't just that she pushed religion on people when they were vulnerable. It was also the fact that she would try to shame people for not believing the way she did. She wasn't a religious person who respected that other people saw the world differently. As a person who is an atheist who, throughout my friendship with Natasha, was deconverting and questioning and evaluating things about religion, so I would have these conversations in that group chat and with those people in my social circle where I would question things like, why is it that XYZ will happen if there's this good, benevolent God? Or why are these things a part of religion, these biases and these rules and these regulations? And the thing about Natasha was she would always see these questions and these conversations as a direct attack on her faith and her way of viewing the world, when they weren't. They were just me, a young person, asking hard questions as I matured. And she would try to vilify me and try to act like I was a bad person for feeling this way about these things. So going into the story, one of the things I want y'all to understand about my relationship with Natasha is I was cool with Natasha, but I kind of had this little distance between her, where it was like I was cool with her, but I always felt like if I didn't show myself to be this religious person, then Natasha would judge me. Natasha wouldn't want to be involved with me, and Natasha would kind of badmouth me to other people and try to act like you shouldn't hang out with the Esoteric and Facetious because he's not religious and he's not good people and you can't trust him. That type of stuff bothered me because here's my thing when it comes to deconverting from religion. It's a process that can be very painful and traumatizing. So when people try to judge you for feeling the way you honestly and truthfully do, it can be very upsetting because it's like, I wasn't trying to upset her. I wasn't trying to bash her religion. I was just trying to figure out what I felt, what I believed. The thing I hated about Natasha was she would always try to make me into a bad person for questioning things and not just going with the program. She loved her friends that she could convert and can control, but the people who thought critically and who didn't go with everything she said, she would have an issue with us. She would try to make it like we were the issue. So that's how I felt about Natasha going into the story time. Now let's talk about Betty. I was cool with Betty. Betty, if you're watching this, I'm cool with you. We have no beef. Betty, she's just bougie, like she just likes nicer things. Betty is a Black American woman. I knew Betty because she was friends with my sister because they both did color guard together freshman year. I also knew her because we were in the same first period math class together. We were both very friendly with each other because we had classes together. We were both Black gifted AP students. She knew my sister, she knew me. We also did different clubs together, like student leadership team, student council, stuff like that. And also, my family went to a certain church, and her family actually started going to that church. We were already kind of known in the church, we were involved in the church, so us being involved in the church, we welcomed her into the church since we knew her. So we were very cool with each other, we were very familiar with each other. Our moms knew each other, we were essentially family friends. We'd been over her house, she'd been over our house, so me and Betty were very cool. And honestly, looking back at the story time, it's like, she really is cool. Looking back at the story time, I can see tells from Sue, Shelly, and Natasha that they were people who weren't really there for me. But honestly, looking back at the story time, I'm like, Betty, honestly, let me check in on you. Let me see how you're doing, sis, because you've been cool and you stay cool. So those are all the people who are in this story time. Let's get into the actual story time. We were all in Sue and Betty's dorm. They lived in the dorm together. They'd picked each other as roommates. We would often hang out in their dorm because they were at the center of campus. So this story time takes place in Sue and Shelly's dorm. The first reason why we would hang out in Sue and Shelly's dorm a lot is because they were both roommates. So we didn't have to ask somebody's roommate, oh, hey, can our friends come over? Because they were both the roommates. So if they want us to hang out in their room, we can hang out in their room. Two, me and Betty, our dorms were far off on the other side of campus. And Natasha was in the freshman dorm. So Natasha's dorm was cramped and small, so we didn't really want to be up in there in the community bathroom small dorm. So if you haven't seen my first story time, the issue in that story time was I, as a Black man, a Black bi man, I was trying to connect with Black men. I was trying to make Black male friends. I had had some Black male friends in the past, but I definitely wanted to have that Black college experience, become a part of the Black male dynamic on campus. I'd heard all these stories of people finding their best men, their best male friends that, you know, were these lifelong friends that they would be friends with forever during their time in college. So I definitely wanted to be a part of that. I knew I wanted to connect with other Black men and make more Black male friends. And the issue of that story time was I dapped somebody up and Shelly basically acts like, oh my gosh, you're a real dude, you're a real nigga, you dapped him up. And that annoyed me because I, as a Black queer man and as a Black queer reading man, knew that there may be some struggles when it would come to connecting with Black men because some Black men don't want to interact with queer men or queer reading men because they don't want to be tied to queerness. So hearing her clown my attempt or act shocked at my attempt to connect with Black men bothered me because it implied that I didn't belong in Black male spaces as a Black man. And the reason why I bring that up is I want y'all to understand the dynamic of this friend group situation. I was trying to connect and meet Black men and just people in general who were cool, but I was also still hanging out with this group of Black women. It was essentially 4 Black women and 1 Black man, 1 Black queer man, me, who wasn't all the way out yet. I was comfortable with myself, but I just wasn't all the way out yet because I wasn't really ready to be out yet, and I'll get into that later on in the video. And those situations can work out as long as there's respect and mutual understanding. But I think the issue that comes with this story time is there wasn't that mutual respect and understanding, and I don't think these women knew how to interact with someone that they thought was queer, and because they didn't know how to interact with someone that they presumed to be queer, that caused the conflict and the lack of understanding and the issues that come with the story time. So let's get into the story time. So we're all sitting in the dorm, kiki and chatting. We may have watched a movie. I remember when I was in the dorms, one of the things that was really exciting was if someone had an HDMI cord, because you could connect it to the TV, you could watch Netflix, you could watch a movie. It was easy, cheap, free fun. So we may have watched a movie. We may have come back from the dining hall because I remember earlier on in the school year, the first week, there were no classes. We were still new to the area. We didn't know what to do, so we could just go to the dining hall and eat. So I'm guessing we probably had went to the dining hall and ate, and we're probably sitting down, laying down, chilling, letting that food digest. So Shelly gets this idea to do truth or dare. And when she said this, it kind of annoyed me, because here's the thing. Like I said, it was a dynamic where it was 4 black women and 1 black man. And so I'd already tried it when she'd made the remark about me dapping somebody up, where she basically implied I didn't fit in with black male culture because I was queer, or because I was queer reading. So while I was cool with hanging out with them because I didn't know that many people and they were being friendly, generally speaking, I definitely knew that there was some type of attention because I was assumed queer, and clearly they weren't afraid at making comments pointing to that. So when she announced the truth or dare, I was kind of annoyed because I knew that there was a potential that Shelly was going to ask me about my sexuality, and at this time I wasn't out. And here's the thing, I went to college knowing I wanted to be more out and interact with the community and live my truth, but one of the reasons why I wasn't out is because I literally just got on campus. And one of the things I want y'all to understand is how connected I was to other people. Like I said in my first video, I wasn't across the country at a place where nobody knew me. I was surrounded by people I went to high school with, and not only people I went to high school with, but people who were connected to me and my sister, where these people got my sister on Snapchat and Instagram and got her phone number. They are in group chats with other friends of mine and close acquaintances of mine. So if I let it be known that I'm bi, that I'm a queer person, I'm a member of the LGBT community, that information within seconds can go back to my hometown, back to my home church, to my sister at her college, and other people in our social group. And also the new people I'm meeting on this campus, the other black people that we're all getting to know, the other black first years and just first years in general. When you're someone who's not out, this idea that the second that you tell one person about your sexuality, that can go to all these other people, that can be very overwhelming. So for me, when I heard her say, let's play truth or dare, I got annoyed because I already knew that there was something up. I already knew that she was probably gonna play it like that. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? This is fun. We're young people. This is a fun game that people play. I was kind of nervous going into the truth or dare because I felt like this is what you're gonna ask, because this is a question that people always have for me. So going into the game, I was already annoyed because I'm like, I bet you this is why she's playing this game, so she can try to pressure me into telling her my sexuality. They all agree to play the game. So we go through a few turns, and every time I choose dare, because I'm like, I knew that that was probably going to be the question, so I'm like, I'm gonna keep choosing dare. And then this is when it really became apparent what she was trying to do. She says, no, you need to choose truth. You need to choose truth. And looking back at it, it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of funny. Because looking back, it's like, Shelly, you weren't even trying to hide that your goal was for me to pick truth so you could ask me the question. So anyways, she forces me to pick truth. I was just like, whatever, I'll pick truth, fine. So she asks me something like, what's your sexuality? What's your identity? And obviously, like I said, I'm not trying to be outed. I'm not trying to come out just yet. So I say, no, I'm straight, no, no, I'm not queer, even though it was bi, and I knew I was bi. This situation bothered me for a lot of reasons, and I'll get more into the other issues that happened after this, but I just kind of want to break down my first issue with this. Part of the reason why she asked me to do this in truth or dare is because she knew that I wasn't ready to share this information freely and publicly. Because if she thought that it was information I would easily and readily share, she would just ask me, hey, what's your identity? Are you attracted to boys? Are you attracted to girls? Are you attracted to boys and girls? What's up with you? If she felt like it was something I wanted to share willingly, she would have asked me openly, because it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But her choosing to do this whole scheme of doing truth or dare with the sole purpose of doing it to find out my sexuality showed me she was conniving. She wanted it out of me bad. She tried to play this game so that she could force me. She felt she could be smarter. She felt she could play this game with me so she could coerce me into telling her the truth. And that bothered me. Because here's my thing, if you are a friend to somebody who is LGBT or who you suspect is LGBT, you need to realize that their sexuality, their personal information is none of your business. If you truly support them, you will give them the time and the space to share that information on their own if they want to, on their own time. What bothered me was that willingness to overlook my obvious... I got interrupted, but what I wanted to say here is Shelly overlooked my obvious discomfort. Shelly saw I was clearly uncomfortable, but she kept pushing and pushing and pushing for the answer and the information. If I'd wanted to be out loud and proud, then I would have been out loud and proud then. But I wasn't ready. But instead of her giving me the time and giving me the space to share my truth when I was ready, she tried to coerce it out of me through this little game. And here's my thing, I'm an intuitive person and I definitely can pick up on things. And one of the issues I had with 𝘎𝙪𝙗 is I didn't feel 𝘎𝙪𝙗 wanted to learn my sexuality, to learn my identity, to be an ally and to try to help me through stuff. Because there are some people out there who do want to know their friend's sexuality or identity, not because they're being nosy, but because they want to help that person out and be there for that person. For example, my ex-best friend, who might get some damn story times of his own, one of the things I will say about him that I give him so much respect for is he never pressured me to find out my sexuality. He gave me the time and the space, so when I felt comfortable and ready and felt comfortable telling him that I was bi, it was of my own accord. It wasn't because he pressured me. And when I did come out, he was happy that I came out to him because he could support me and he could understand more about me. But the issue with 𝘎𝙪𝙗 was 𝘎𝙪𝙗 never gave me that vibe. 𝘎𝙪𝙗 gave me the vibe of I'm nosy as hell and I need to know this because I want to know this. 𝘎𝙪𝙗 gave me the vibe of you ain't gonna keep this from me because I want to know what I want to know when I want to know it. And that bothered me because here's the thing, 𝘎𝙪𝙗 had no idea the trauma and all of the stuff that I've went through because of my identity and living in this world, coming from where I come from. She had no idea of all of that and she didn't care about all of that. She just wanted to know my business. That's all she cared about. The issue with that is being out, being open that you are a person who's a part of the LGBT community comes with a lot of trauma and comes with a lot of judgment and baggage. It's a lot being an out and proud queer person, especially being a black person coming from the Bible Belt, coming from a religious household. So it's like 𝘎𝙪𝙗 wanted the tea, 𝘎𝙪𝙗 wanted the information, but 𝘎𝙪𝙗 took no consideration as to what being out as a black queer person fresh into college, fresh into a new environment may do to me and my mental health. So those were some of my initial issues with 𝘎𝙪𝙗 trying to out me or trying to question my sexuality. So going back to the story, I say, no, I'm straight, etc., etc. And then, as if matters cannot be made worse, 𝘎𝙪𝙗 decides, no, that's not good enough. Me saying that I'm straight isn't good enough. She's going to conduct an investigation. So she says, oh really, you're straight, okay, so who are some girls you had some crushes on? And looking back, this just annoys me so much because it's just like, if it was just about finding out my sexuality, then why is it that now I have to prove myself to you? If 𝘎𝙪𝙗 just was curious and if 𝘎𝙪𝙗 just wanted to know, then me saying that I was straight should have been good enough, even though obviously I'm bi. It should have been good enough. If that's what I said, that's what I said. But her trying to sit here and say, oh no, who are some of the crushes you've had? I need to prove it. I need to show that I've been attracted to a certain amount of girls. That proves that I'm really straight. That bothered me because it's like, who the F are you? We are cool. We've hung out a few times since we're all in college at this new college together trying to figure things out. We were friendly in a few classes together, but who are you to sit here and question my sexuality, my identity, who I'm attracted to, who I love? How dare you? That bothered me so much because it was just like, you're already being invasive, you're already trying it, but you're digging the knife in even deeper by sitting here trying to get me to prove it to you. Me saying what I am isn't enough for you. And that's something that bothers me, and that's something I'm probably going to talk about more in other videos. I definitely feel like being someone who reads as queer, my sexuality isn't seen as valid just by me existing. I have to prove it. I have to prove that I'm bi. I have to prove my attraction. Somebody else who's more straight passing, they would never even get the question of who they are, even if they're queer as hell. One of the issues or traumas I feel this situation brought up for me was this feeling that I always have to prove myself as a bi man and that everyone sees me as queer, that I'm never just enough as the person I am. As a bi man, as a man who's interested in men and women, I just want to walk through my life, exist in this world as a bi man and just be myself and just be accepted as the bi person I am. I feel because of my mannerisms, because of my interests, because of the way I express myself, I don't get that ability to just walk through life as a bi person and fly under the radar and just date who I want to date. People feel entitled to finding out my sexuality because I read as queer, because of the way I talk, because of the way I present myself in this world. And that's one of those things that I've definitely tried to work through and just have always tried to just accept. Because here's the thing. There are people I know who are queer who never get questions about their identity. There are people I know from my class in college, like other people I know within the Black community on campus who are queer, and I'm not the type of person to out somebody. But it's like I know people who are more quote-unquote straight passing and they never get these invasive questions. They just get to walk through their life, presume straight, and It's never an issue for them. They get to be as queer as they want when they want, but they get to, I feel, have more control over their narrative or how they're perceived. I don't care about people knowing that I'm queer, but I'm bothered by people feeling entitled to that information. People often feel entitled to all of this information about my sexuality and identity just off the bat. I'm expected to out myself and share my coming out experience, share the trauma I've experienced as a queer person. People often feel entitled to asking me invasive questions about my sexuality, about my attractions, and things of that sort. Here's my thing. I'm not saying there aren't issues or struggles that come with being a straight, assumed queer man, but I just have to say, as someone who's often read as queer, it can be very traumatizing to always have people question your identity and also invalidate your identity. Because I feel like that's what was happening. When she sits here and tries to ask me for proof of girls I've been attracted to, that showed me she didn't feel like me just saying that I was straight was enough. That should have been that, but it wasn't enough for her because in her mind I was already queer because I presented a certain way. I had to prove that I had these female attractions for her to see me as straight. Me saying I was straight wasn't enough. I had to pass her interrogation to be seen as straight. So that was that. Then here's where Natasha comes in. Because Natasha's remark, I feel, also triggered me and also was problematic in its own ways. And honestly, I sometimes remember Natasha's remark more than I remember Shelly pulling the situation together. Natasha says, I knew it, I knew that you were gay. She's like, what? You're straight? What? No, I knew it, I knew you had to be a part of the LGBT community. I knew you had to be one of them. To be clear, she didn't know anything about my identity. She was assuming that I was queer based off of, I guess, her interactions with me and her assumptions about me based on my behavior. This triggered me for a number of reasons. The first was the way she said, I knew it. She have made it into this situation that I've always compared to knowing the amount of candy in a candy jar. You know how at those fall festivals, they'll have a jar of candy and it'll have a certain amount of candy in it and you'll guess the amount of candy in it. That's how I felt Natasha was treating my sexuality. As I knew it. She had not had a single conversation with me about my sexuality. But when it comes up in conversation in a way that I don't even really consent to, when it's forced upon me through this contrived game of truth or dare, Natasha feels comfortable saying, I knew it. I knew your identity. When I say that I'm a certain identity or sexuality, how dare you get up and say with your whole chest, but I knew it, but I knew that you were this identity. I knew that you were this way. How did you know it though? And I honestly wish I had grilled her on that and said, well, how did you know? Because of the way I talk or because of the music I listen to or because of the shows I watch? How did you know? You didn't know. You couldn't know because you are not me. You are not in this body. You're not in this brain. What Natasha said bothered me so much because it was just like, how dare you sit here and say you know who I am based off of stereotypes and assumptions? So I was just very upset and I was just very uncomfortable after this situation because first and foremost, I didn't like that Shelly had tried to put me on the spot and tried to out me. My issue with Shelly was Shelly knew that I wasn't all the way comfortable talking about my sexuality. The other issue I had with Shelly was when I said I was straight, even though I'm bi, when I said I was straight, it should have been the end of the situation. But for you to keep prodding at me and trying to get me to prove my sexuality, that's not cool. You don't get to invalidate other people's identity and make them feel they have to prove themselves to you. Who are you where I have to sit here and prove myself and prove my attractions to you? And lastly, I want to talk about Natasha. When somebody discloses their sexuality or their identity to you, you accept what they say. You don't invalidate what they're saying. You don't know better than that person knows. For you to say, I knew it, that's an issue because for you to think you know somebody's identity more than they do, that's a problem. Here's the issue of the situation. Shelly put knowing my business over me being comfortable as a friend, treating me like a human being, treating me with respect. Shelly didn't care about if I was comfortable with the question. All Shelly cared about was getting the tea, getting the information from me. And the thing that made me sad was I was just trying to be me. I was just trying to come to terms with my identity on my own time. Like I said earlier in the video, I wanted to be out in college, but I definitely wanted to figure out when the time was right for me, when it felt right for me. And it was very upsetting to see people speculating on my identity and trying to coerce it out of me so earlier on in the college experience, because it showed me it's not about when I'm ready. I mean, it is about when I'm ready, but when it came to the social situation, it wasn't about when I was ready. It was what they wanted to know and what they wanted to weasel out of me. And it also made me sad because I just questioned myself, because here's the thing, as a bi man, I want to interact with men in a platonic manner. And when I have situations like this truth or dare situation, it's like when I interact with black men, they just see me as this flaming queer stereotype that they're gonna judge and not want to be friends with. If I interact with women, are they all just going to assume, like Shelly and Natasha did, that I'm queer and that I have to be queer? This situation hurt me a lot because it made me feel like as a bi man, I couldn't just be myself and live in my truth and just walk throughout the world as the person I was. This situation made me feel like, no, you don't get that right to be yourself and live in your truth and own who you are. Who you are is determined by how people stereotype you to be. It doesn't matter if you're bisexual. If people think you're gay, you have to be gay because that's how they perceive you. I felt like if Shelly and Natasha perceive me this way, how am I supposed to believe that anybody else would not just see me as how they perceive? And so it was really damaging and was honestly a lot to deal with because I just also questioned how many of these other people that I'm meeting are just making all these assumptions about me, and are any of them actually going to care about who I am and how I identify, or are they just going to be pressed and stuck on their assumptions about me? And it just kind of made me question, does who I am actually matter if people's assumptions and stereotypes about me are what they're projecting onto me? So I guess the lesson of this story time is, if you have any people in your life who you think may be LGBT, give them the space to be themselves and come out when they're ready. They don't need any help. I'll repeat that, they don't need any help. If you want to be supportive to someone that you suspect might be queer, what I would say is be supportive of LGBT people and let them know that you're an ally, so that if they do feel comfortable, when they do feel comfortable, they will choose to share that information with you. Coercing that information out of somebody is not going to help them. It's just going to probably make them feel more insecure. Because with me, I'm just like, well, damn, is this how everybody's feeling about me? Is this just what they're saying about me behind my back? It was a lot to deal with. I just gotten into school. I just unpacked my bags. I just was trying to figure out my place in college and make friends, and I just wanted to figure out the LGBT stuff when I was ready. I wanted to figure it out when the time felt right, and I just felt like that was taken away from me with this situation. Another thing I want to add to this is the fact that Sue and Betty were quiet throughout this whole ordeal. I was being put on the spot about my sexuality. I was clearly uncomfortable, and neither Betty nor Sue said anything. And I think this is just a testament to, if you're a bystander of a situation where someone clearly feels uncomfortable, where somebody's being cornered, where they're being told things that clearly are upsetting to them, you should speak up. You should be an advocate for that person. You shouldn't just sit there and watch it happen. It appeared that Betty was uncomfortable with how they were trying to pressure me to answer these questions, but it felt like she didn't want to call them out. She didn't want to rock the boat. And Sue actually told me when we were alone that she knew I wasn't gay because she knew that I had once had a crush on her. It was short-lived, but one of our mutual friends had told her about it. So it's just funny looking back because, like, Sue, you knew the truth. You could have advocated or said a little something, but you sat away in the corner watching them sit here and question me and interrogate me about my identity after I gave them an answer. And I'm not saying I can't advocate for myself or speak up for myself, but clearly I was feeling uncomfortable and targeted. So it's like, if you see that two people are going after one person and invalidating them and their experiences and speaking on them and who they are, maybe chip in, maybe defend the person who is clearly being put on the spot and being made to feel uncomfortable. There will be other story times about Natasha and Shelly and the other people from this bunch. I just wanted to share that situation with y'all because it was pretty traumatizing. And while I think I've definitely unpacked it and healed from it, it was a lot to handle at the time. One of the things I really want to hammer in with y'all is coming out does not have to do with how clockable somebody is. Here's my opinion, and this may be an opinion that some people don't agree with, but my opinion is this. I don't care how clockable you think somebody is. I don't care how obvious you think it is that somebody is a member of the LGBT community. You need to give them the space and the time to share that information when they want to do it, because you don't understand what they're going through. You don't understand the things that are going on in their life. You don't understand their support system or lack thereof. All you are is a nosy person who's trying to figure out their business. The thing I want y'all to understand, I'm not going to get emotional, but the odds are you're not going to be there when their world changes. Let them be themselves when they feel comfortable doing that. You never want to take that power away from somebody, because here's the thing. Let's say I did say, it is true, I am bi, I'm attracted to boys and girls. What if I said that before I was ready and it got out to my sister, it got out to my family? Would Shelly and Natasha have sat there and helped me through losing those connections or having trauma because of that information being out before I was ready? No. All they wanted was the tea. They wouldn't have sat there and helped me to rebuild and to heal from the judgment that those people had of me. And if you're not willing to deal with the repercussions of somebody being out, don't try to force them out. That's all I have to say on that. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Love y'all. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you like this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the points I made in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, definitely like, comment, subscribe, and share. That way, even if YouTube isn't pushing my content, those who resonate with it are sharing it so it can connect with others who would enjoy it. Those are some easy, free ways to support a pop of culture. If you want to support this show financially, feel free to send a tip to my Cash App or buy me a cup of coffee, both are linked below. All who donate will be featured in the credits of my long-form commentary and cover videos. There are 2 playlists that are going to pop up, one where you can binge watch my covers and one where you can binge watch my commentary. Enjoy. Bye-bye.